I think there's another understanding of being just faithful in small stuff and continuing to, as we call it, the Jim Collins crank on the flywheel, that the breakthrough is coming. And sometimes it's hard as a business leader to really crank and feel some days like you're taking one step forward and two backward. And how do I get this where I want it to be? And I think that just being faithful in that small stuff and that breakthrough is coming.
Welcome to the 1110 Leadership Podcast, where we tackle issues at the intersection of leadership, faith, and culture. I'm your host, Rob Shields, Vice President of Strategy at 1110 Leadership, and I'm joined by my co-host, founder and CEO of 1110 Leadership, David Spickard. Proverbs 1110 lays out a bold and countercultural vision. When the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. We're here to ask, what does it look like practically to be this type of leader? Leaders willing to invest everything they have so that everyone around them can thrive. Join us on the journey as we lean in, listen, and learn how to become Proverbs 11:10 kind of leaders. The kind of leaders that make our cities rejoice. David.
Hey, Rob.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm real good. You good?
I'm good. We're good. Everything is good.
We've been good pretty consistently.
We've been consistently good. Ultimately, our listeners are the judge of that. I hope they are. We're staring down the nose of 100 episodes, right? We talk about having cultures of celebration. We got to figure out, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I don't know.
To mark that moment, David.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It will be fun. That's a milestone.
It's going to be fun to think through what's the topic on the 100th episode.
I know. Who are the guests?
You're going to have to really listen into that one.
Hopefully it's not a going out of business episode. It's like you call in all the favors when you're stopping. We don't have plans to stop. This is just, we're turning a chapter, and we don't know what the road will lead us down to when we get to 200. So we got to celebrate.
Yeah, it's fun. When we started this, we didn't know we'd have enough content to have the number of episodes and to have guests like we do today, and to add to the content that we're learning through our own journey of leadership and what we're doing with our leaders that we work with. It's just been really great. And today's no different with Tim Spence, who is a good friend and also CEO of BSA Life Structures, which is an architectural design firm that works all across the country, not exclusively, but primarily in the healthcare space. And Tim has just been an incredibly faithful and humble leader. And we got to walk with him as he took over as the CEO of BSA. And just, it's been such a real encouragement. What I would say about a lot of our leaders, even those who are successful and in positions of real influence, is that they wonder if they're good leaders still. And Tim was open about that as he moved into that role. And you want to grow and you want to be better and you want to take on this opportunity in ways that are going to allow the people of BSA to be at their best and for the company to really take next steps. It's just awesome to have someone that with that posture as your leader. So we just explore that with him today, and I'm excited for the nuggets that we're going to hear as a result of his story.
Yeah. When I think of Tim, I think of, what makes a really good podcast guest are people who would never seek out being a podcast
That's
guest.
right. Yeah.
And that's Tim Spence. And that comes through in this conversation. It comes through in his leadership. There's just a deep humility there, but there's also just excellence. And there's a lot of wisdom as well. So I'm really excited for our listeners. Here's our conversation with our good friend, Tim Spence.
Hello, Tim. Welcome to the 1110 Leadership Podcast.
I'm so excited to be here with two of my faves.
Oh, this is great. Can't wait.
Can't wait. Two of your faves. Which do you like best?
Don't make him answer that question, David. It's going to hurt your feelings.
Oh, man.
It's going to hurt your feelings.
I'm not answering that, David.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you look good today. You're in your new Zoom room at BSA after a bit of a renovation of your office. It's good to have you with us and to have us talk through really your journey, which we've been able to have a part in, just a brief part, in these last few years, to see how you have been building on your career at BSA, how that has then positioned you to be CEO of the company. And for you to welcome us into that has just been a real gift for us. So we're excited to share you with our listeners. And Before I get into our questions, I'd love, Tim, for you just to give a quick overview of your time at BSA and how you would describe your career there, and then what has teed up your time for you now as CEO.
Yeah, first of all, you were pretty humble in that intro. Both of you have had impact on me over the last few years. And I feel like part of my background is that I started the Raleigh office in 2015, and I had my sights set on being a regional leader. And in 2017 was asked to take on more of a national role, which was healing practice director for BSA. And in 2020, right as COVID was descending upon us, I was tapped to take the president role. And in 23, moved into the CEO role. And so if you do the math there, it's basically every 3 years. I feel like I've been on this extreme learning curve, and folks like you, David, in particular, come alongside of me and just being a mentor to me have been tremendous. But that's a little bit of the background coming up to this. And I should just start by saying I'm a licensed architect. That's how I started in this business straight out of school, and have been working for over 30 years in the business of architecture.
And so describe who your clients are and what you do for them in particular.
Yeah, I would say that BSA is this. We are an expert-based firm, which means that we specialize in highly complex typologies, and specifically healthcare, which we call healing, higher education, which we call learning, and science and technology, which are labs, and we call that discovery. And so what we say is that we like to find or design a better way to heal, learn, and discover. And that's ultimately what we try to help our clients with, is the activities that happen or occur in their settings, that we're trying to improve those so that they can do their business better.
Man, love that. I don't know that I would hear that necessarily from an architect. Healing, learning, and discovery.
That's good.
Typically, I think of the technical aspects of building a building, and what you just described is the heart behind it. And that's a neat perspective to offer. So how would you then describe what it's been like to move into the CEO role? What have you found to be surprising about it? What have you learned? Yeah. All the things now that you're into that role.
Yeah, we'll start with the surprising role. And I think that architects and engineers, which is the business that we're in, are all pretty wired to be high detail people. And it's that technical piece that you just talked about, David. So being able to elevate thinking to a different level has been one of the things that I've found surprising. I have to fly the friendly skies at about 30,000 feet every day. And that involves taking time to think and to dream. It involves having time for input in my life. It involves time for future thinking. So that's been one of the things that's been a little bit surprising. I would also say to that is that you become more of, I've likened it to this analogy. I went from being a player on the floor to a coach as president to a GM. And so I don't have the same relationship with the players that are on the floor as I did before, but I'm still responsible for the overall operation. And so one of the things that's been surprising to me is there's a lot of just like how I set the tone as a leader. And I would say that in that it's less about words, it's more about actions. And those actions speak louder than words. It's about sometimes stopping the fanfare, as I call it, and just getting back to the basics, having the discipline to be about the basics, I think is really important. It's about delegating and elevating not only myself, but my team. And I think that there's a lot more leaning on other people than I expected. And then it's about just creating this open and transparent environment. And all of those kind of things, you ask the question, surprise, what has surprised you? I don't think they've necessarily surprised me, but I think that it's a different way of going about my daily exercises as a business person and as an architect than what I started in the profession. And so I'll maybe try to answer your second question here, which was, what have I learned? I think you've been helping me with this, which is to give yourself permission to say no. There's a lot of things that get thrown at you and not enough time in the day. And so you have to really understand what are the highest things that I can do with my time today and realize that I can't get to everything. I think there's another understanding of being just faithful in small stuff and continuing to, as we call it, the Jim Collins crank on the flywheel, that the breakthrough is coming. And sometimes it's hard as a business leader to really crank and feel some days like you're taking one step forward and two backward. And how do I get this where I want it to be? And I think that just being faithful in that small stuff and the breakthrough is coming. I think two more things that I'll just offer here quickly is that I've really been challenged lately to be obedient to what God wants in my life, because it's always better than what I can imagine. And so just having that perspective of being able to choose the better and in some cases trust him when I can't necessarily see it is really great. And then the final thing, and I think this is back to my high detail personality, is that there's a propensity to think about what are the things that we haven't achieved yet. And it's really the gap thinking. And gap thinking is not motivating. It tears you down. And so I think the lesson learned has been to shift to that game thinking of, this is where we started, here's where we are now, in understanding what we need to do within kind of that context of, look at all the great things that have happened and just maybe having more of a thankful heart about that.
Tim, I love the analogy of the moving from coach or player to coach to GM. I think that's profound, and I think that language is language we actually use a lot in our coaching of leaders, is helping them see making that shift, which is a hard shift to make. Even once you have the title, even just kind of the muscle memory is so strong. And to play that out, not to make fun of Cowboys fans, but like we see people always throw shots at Jerry Jones of a GM who kind of maybe he just is a little too involved as a former player himself. He just can't let go of the things that he used to do, and it sometimes gets in the way. But I guess my question to you is, you mentioned some of how you are thinking about your time differently now in that role of GM, which is very different and comes with a very different set of responsibilities. What rhythms or habits help you to keep in your lane doing the things that only you can do, so that your team can then be positioned to be elevated, like you said, and empowered, like you mentioned? And I think back on just how in our culture, how much workaholism is one of the only addictions that is just openly celebrated, right? And I think that the role of CEO has a lot of associations with it around just, people who are just working all the time and just have no margin, working themselves into the ground, going, and the person that just never stops. So I'd love for you to just talk about how you found your habits specifically around your relationship to rest. We talk about that as quality zero, work through our peer leadership groups. And so your relationship to rest and what you found to be helpful for those as a rhythm as well.
Yeah, I love what you guys have done around this. And I'll just start by being transparent that I'm still very much a work in progress when it comes to this. that I think my hours tend to be around that 50 hours a week margins, and probably more in the 50 to 55. I'm working hard to get those below 50. I think when it comes to rest, I think it's something that isn't necessarily emphasized enough for leaders. And this year, I put some thinking around that, both in terms of relationships, and I know this is one of the areas that you guys talk about quite a bit, but specifically with my wife. And I'm going to borrow from my good friend John Mills, who has been a part of your Just Leadership groups, where he talks about the 3Ds of marriage: and date, depart, and discuss. Date weekly, discuss daily, depart meaning get away once a quarter. And so I've been really proactive about scheduling those. My wife and I are not on a date weekly basis, but we're on a date bi-weekly basis, and we are getting out together once a quarter. I've taken the initiative to schedule those. I also would say that another relationship that's important to me is the relationship with God, and I've built a prayer strategy for 2025 that involves different levels of prayer. But there are times where I'm setting aside time in my calendar every week to spend time doing that. And I think that's been such a blessing for me. It allows me to get away from the tyranny of the urgent and allows me to just meditate on other things besides those things that are so pressing. The third thing that I've done this year is I've built some retreats into my calendar. And David knows this from being my mentor here for a while, that I did that last year, and I think it failed. I'll just be honest, it completely failed. And that was every time a retreat came by, I didn't guard it. Something pressing came up against that, and it just went by the wayside. And so this year, the way I place those in my calendar is a little bit more purposeful. I'm taking time out of office once a quarter for these, and somewhat being unapologetic about those. But I'll just go back to another point you made, Rob, which is, about this whole GM analogy. And right now, our president, Sam Jackson, is my only report, which is interesting. And it causes me to have to delegate a lot of what I think needs to happen, or have discussions with him about what needs to happen. I think the propensity for people that are more high detail people are just getting in and solving it. Hey, I can do that. And this really goes to any leader, right? If you see something, like, let's just solve it. And I've started to really pull back from that and just say, how can I empower my team to solve it? Our leadership team is made up of a president. We have a chief marketing officer, a chief financial officer, a chief operational officer, and a chief design officer. And they're all super skilled people. And we came to a crisis point last year where they all very transparently told me that you need to trust us more and you need to give us more. And so I think that teaming with them to solve problems is really important. I would also say that I think there's some managing up, as I call it, and that's really working with the board, and specifically the relationship with the current board chair, Kevin Token, and our previous one, David Libator, who were both just great to work with, and seeing that as a partnership as well with the board, not as an adversarial relationship, but as something that can enhance my leadership, and they're able to help and able to jump in with different things as well.
Hey, business leaders, are you and your team truly thriving? The Thrive Assessment from 1110 Leadership is designed to help you find out. This powerful 360 tool uncovers key leadership opportunities and challenges to help foster growth and help you build a thriving workplace culture. With insights into trust, health, relationships, impact, value, and engagement, you'll gain a clear understanding of where you stand and how to improve. But what sets the Thrive Assessment apart is the relational process. It's so much more than just an online survey. Our team walks with you through the results, providing support and coaching to help you and your team thrive together. Ready to take your leadership to the next level? Visit 1110leadership.com to learn more and start thriving today.
Yes, you're talking, Tim. I just kept thinking about that word trust. Everything you said is at the core of it is trust. It's trusting God. It's trusting your wife. It's trusting your team. It's trusting that you can get away every quarter and it's okay. Talk about with our leaders how you need to put those things in your schedule and have them be non-negotiable. And then you work around those versus the other way around. It's so easy to just say, too much is going on. I'll push that retreat out, or I don't need it right now, or whatever it might be. So it's just really encouraging for you to say that. And I'm curious too, you've talked a lot. What I love about working with you, Tim, and just our friendship is it is very clear that you care about people, you care about things that matter, and that drives your work and who you are. So I'm curious for you to identify, how would you describe your why you do what you do? And in particular, when your team comes to you and says, you need to trust us more, how then does that why that you have translate to them so that you feel like this is a collective thing? It's not just you and your purpose, but it's connecting to your team. It's connecting to healing, learning, and discovering for your company. So it's all intermeshed with all of those together.
I think the why question is really important, David, and you helped me quite a bit with this during our time together. And I think it's built around a couple things, and I'll try to unpack this a little bit. But one of the things that really impacted me a lot was another leader, Howard Schultz, who was the founder and former CEO of Starbucks. And he made a statement that really impacted me. He said, "We're not in the coffee business serving people, we're in the people business serving coffee." And it was a little play on words, but it really resonated with me. And then I think if you add on top of that, like, why am I at BSA? I can remember distinctly in late 2014, we were looking at multiple options and we came across BSA, and they had a mission to improve lives and create inspired solutions that improve lives. And that really resonated with me. I thought, we're not in the architecture and engineering business, we're in the improving lives business. So I've taken that a step further with my personal why. And I think it's people-centered. It's to impact others for eternity. And I'll just say this. I realize that there are going to be people in our organization and industry that hear this and maybe don't share my faith, and I think that's all right. But I hope that you appreciate the filter that allows me to be a better leader and allows the environment to create the environment that we're in. David, I think the question for me is, so how does that shift what you do or shift your thinking? And I've really started to shift my prayer life from asking God for success for our company to asking God for success for our people. And ultimately, I love the word sozo. It's the Greek word for salvation. It means complete healing. When you think about salvation, it is physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual, it is mental. And I just love that picture of getting back to the why. Impact others for eternity.
I love it. I love it. He just went Greek on us, David. Yeah. Did you hear that?
We should pull out
that was amazing.
We should pull out our Hebrew. he's going to go Greek, we'll go Hebrew.
Yeah, we
I think
should.
that
That's where we're going next. He spoiled it for us. I thought I was going to be fancy introducing a new word, and he beat me to the punch.
that's the extent of my
Cheating.
Greek.
That's great. I love that. No, that idea of complete healing, that's powerful. I'm still thinking about the answer to your first question, honestly. I'm just sitting here distracted thinking about healing, learning, discovering, and just how much your why, it just so clearly maps onto that. And you have a personal connection to it. And you're also leading your team to have a personal connection to it, even if it might be slightly different than your own. But there's room. That's a big umbrella. That's a big tent vision that's really inspiring. So, Tim, I'm going to shift gears a second. You were a part of what was formerly known as a Just Leadership cohort. We now have rebranded them to call them 1110 cohorts. And in that journey with other leaders across industries, we spent a lot of time talking about what we need to be good at as leaders to be what the Bible calls the Sadakim, right? That's our Hebrew counter to your Greek. So we're not going to let you
It's
one up us
impressive.
there. There you go. What does it look like? So the Sadakim in that verse from Proverbs 11:10, it's in every introduction to every episode we do. When the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. For you, as you think about your leadership and you think about BSA's impact and BSA's why and living into that in every community that you're a part of, because you're a national company, you're based here in Raleigh, but you have locations and offices all across the country. How do you think about that verse and kind of mapping that onto your why and strategy of what does it look like to rejoice the city through architecture? And how does that vision impact the way you lead, the decisions you make in ways that maybe might be countercultural in general or even within your industry?
Yeah, I think I just want to know how to spell Sadakin.
We make our guests
I
spell
can't
it.
even,
We don't offer the spelling. We always put you on the hot seat to spell it. Don't make us spell it. We're the hosts here.
on a serious note, I think the improved lives piece, if we pull that back out and just unpack it a little bit, I think that we've started to talk about that in terms of these three zones. The closest one to us is our employees. And so if we aren't improving their lives and the lives of their families, then we aren't fulfilling our mission. The next kind of circle is our clients. And we've extended that to back to this idea of healing, learning, and discovery and the activities that happen within the buildings. We've expanded that to clients and their clients. So if they're in the business of healing, that would be patients, the patients that are impacted in the buildings where they heal. And then the third circle has been the community circle. And it gets back to, I think, you really challenging me to think about what is our responsibility here. And I think about this in terms of architecture and engineering. And architecture traditionally has been a service for those with power and influence and, frankly, money. And so we've started to ask the question about how can we make this something that just isn't an element for the rich and famous, but it's something that can extend. And as we've built our expertise, applying that expertise around the world, we had an opportunity in 2019 with a group called Mission 318, and two of my other favorite people, John and Patty Limpard, who are both physicians, young, energetic, bright people at the top of their world. And they, for I think it was over 10 years at the time, had been going to Yendi, Ghana, and just volunteering a week of time, and they would do 100 surgeries during that week. Things like goiters and hernias and C-sections. And so I got the opportunity to go with them. And the whole reason was because they felt like they weren't really improving the health of that community. And they were just going there, and there was 100 new surgeries every year and just on the hamster wheel. And so they started asking the question, how can we really improve the health of the community? And they brought us in to help them with a master plan on the hospital. And so BSA stepped up to the table and gave back. We went through about a year-long process of designing a master plan. We open it up as a competition, an internal competition, form teams around it. And those teams then presented to the client, which was Mission 318. And the best idea came forward. We worked a little bit more on that. And then I had the opportunity to go back right before COVID in 2020 and present this plan all over the country to high-ranking officials. It was quite fun. And so I think this serves as a model for how can a company take their expertise, and it doesn't have to be around the world, it can be in your backyard, but start to apply that elsewhere. I will give you two other concrete things that has pushed us in our thinking is that we've set a goal for this year of each person having 8 volunteer hours in their community. We budget for it. We empower it. We don't police it. It's really up to the employee. We also have a give back program where if somebody is working with a certain community or a nonprofit, that we will give a certain amount of money to that to support them. So I would just say all of that started talking about community, but if we back up to the employee, we've made some really interesting decisions in the business around just making employees first. And the biggest one is the employee stock ownership program. This is an employee-owned company. You don't have to work here for 30 years to be a partner. You're a partner day one. And you get to be a part of the successes that we have from that standpoint. We have a work from home flexibility kind of policy that allows people to have lives outside of here. We have a flexible time off policy, which doesn't set, typically when you first get out of school, you get maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky, and then it slowly goes up to 4 weeks. And we just have thrown all that out and said, hey, we're going to treat you like a professional. You take the time off that you need, act responsibly, get your work done. But if you need time off after a deadline or whatever, you just take it. And then on top of that is stuff like value sharing, which would be in other companies called a bonus program. But it's essentially recognizing that whatever successes we have, we turn those back to our company. And so those are some of the things that just getting back to how does this all idea of the city rejoicing, how does it impact our employees?
There's a lot to unpack there, Tim. We could use a whole nother episode to ask. I'm thinking of a bunch of questions that I would want to ask you. But the one that stands out to me is how has this impacted your culture? How would you say your people are bought in to what BSA is doing and feel engaged in light of what you just described?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and we've had people from the outside say this, that probably more so than any firm that I've been associated with, we have a group of people that have totally bought into the mission to create inspired solutions that improve lives. And it's something we say a lot, and it's been around since I think maybe around 2006. But it's more than words to people. And so that's been super encouraging. And as we've started to define a little bit of what that means in terms of kind of this employee and family concentric circles around that, I think there's more work to be done around that. But I think that people are starting to get it. And when they feel cared for, they can turn around and care for others is the idea. And I think the piece that I've added to this is just the eternity mindset. And this kind of goes back to, for me personally as a leader, is just understanding that framework of it's not just about what we do in this life, but it's about what we do for eternity. And I'm hopeful that as we continue down this road, that others will understand that and take on that mindset as well.
Tim, this might sound like a weird pivot because this has been such an inspiring conversation. I'm going to ask you to provide a eulogy for your company. We do this for our work in our group settings with leaders, of thinking about maybe developing, what do you want said about you after you're gone, like the kind of legacy you want to leave. And I think that you've done a good job answering that for yourself. But when you think about eulogizing BSA, right? Not that's on the horizon anytime soon. No company lasts forever. What would you want to be said of it after it's gone, about the impact that it had? What goes on that gravestone? And that's not meant to be a Debbie Downer question. I think actually the opposite.
Yeah, it's a weird question, but it's definitely makes you think. And I guess to answer directly, I would like people to say that we're in the people business doing architecture and engineering. And we've improved millions of lives. And I think I've noticed that with people that have impact, not to get into too many side stories, but my dad was an electrical engineer who gave up his career when I was about 5 and went into full-time ministry and served, I'm trying to think how, 25 years and maybe 20 years in that role. And it was interesting, after he passed in 97, how many people came forward and said, man, he impacted my life. And there's still people that contact me all the time that say that. And I think the truth about the matter is you'll never realize how many lives you improved until you get to that point of the gravestone. And so I just wanted to unpack this idea about people first culture a little bit more, because I have done some thinking about it. I love the thinking that you've done, David, around this with thrive, trust, health, relationships, impact, engagement. I've looked at it through maybe a more concise filter, but I think it relates a lot to the work that you've done. And I was challenged by the book, Daniel Pink's book, about the surprising truth about what motivates us. And he talks in that book about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I played with those words a little bit, and I thought, I was trying to, at the time, figure out, like, what is the rocket fuel that really changes or allows BSA or any company to, break through the ceiling, to explore new levels. And I came up with this acronym that was PED. PED, it stands for performance enhancing drug. It can be a negative connotation, but I was trying to use it in a positive and relate it to these words of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I came up with purpose, which is like, everyone wants a deeper purpose in life. We all make a paycheck, but we want something more than that. So what is the more that we're after? And it's really that deep meaning, who we are and the impact that we make. The second one was empowerment, and that was this idea of autonomy. And the empowerment piece is that people want to be trusted to do things, right? They want to, like, as a leader, if you tap somebody on the shoulder and say, man, I was really wanting some help with this, and I think you're the right person to do this, man, how empowering is that? It feels incredible to have a leader do that. And then the third one is the development. And this kind of gets back to the idea of mastery. And like, everyone wants to progress in life. And specifically, this next generation is looking for, how do I progress? They are after it. They want to understand how they can move through the different levels. And they don't want to spend 30 years doing it. They want to develop. And that's a little bit of what I've been thinking about in terms of just getting back to this idea of a people first culture, and how do we improve lives, and ultimately what goes on our gravestone.
So PED is on the gravestone of BSA.
I really didn't think that. I didn't see that coming.
Yes, love that. With context around purpose, empowerment, and development, which is the performance enhancing drug for BSA. Yes, love that.
Yes, there it is.
Tim, this has been so great as I hear you talk and hear really the heart behind you and your work and the culture at BSA. If I'm on the BSA team. I'm just so encouraged to hear that. If I'm a client, I'm so encouraged to hear that. And what's fun for me, having seen your work, is you guys are excellent architects and engineers, and the spaces that you create are next level, world class, and you're getting opportunities. And what's neat about that is your expertise and the way you design and build your buildings and facilities are centered around healing and learning and discovering. You create spaces so that people are cared for. You think outside the box to reorient something, and so that people can have an improved life in the way they interact with space, which is so fun to marry the technical with the heart as well. As we close up, we always give our guests the opportunity to provide a bottom line, which is just a closing thought or action or next step, word of advice, anything that you want to leave with us. We'd love to hear, Tim, what is your bottom line today?
Thanks, first of all, for hosting me. It's been fun. I always enjoy time with you all, and we always seem to find ways to laugh and enjoy life more. So I appreciate that. And so my bottom line is this. I feel like I love to just tell a little bit of the story about me coming into the leadership piece in a greater way, because I think it says something about how a leader should posture themselves. And in late 2000, I guess it was mid 2000s, I really felt like there was some hard work that was starting to happen in my life. And I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that something was about to shift and change. And there were several moments during that where they were just like, what is going on? I'll tell you this. I was in a grocery store one day, and I had a lady who was next to me, and I could tell she was fidgeting. And finally she came over and she dropped her groceries and said, I don't know why I'm supposed to tell you this, but I'm supposed to tell you that God loves you. And I don't think that I have ever had anyone say that to me like that. First of all, get out of their comfort zone and deliver a message they felt like was from a divine being. I left my grocery cart right there, and I walked out of the store, and I got in my car, and I had a good cry for a little bit. There were several other things that happened like that, and I think to the point of when I got into the seat of president in 2020, I was asked to come across the country to have a conversation about where the company was, and it was a group of the board. And I had talked to my brother on the way there and told him what was going on. I think he was honestly concerned about the outcome. And he called me afterwards and he said, so how did it go? And I said, they asked me to be president. And I heard this big laugh on the other end of the phone. And I didn't laugh along with him. And he said, wait a second, you're serious? And I think the message and all of that kind of going up to that point, and this is the bottom line, is that I felt like there was a strong message to me that this is not for you, but it is so that you can impact others. And there's always a bigger story. There's always a bigger story than whatever's going on with you. And one of the verses that I've just been into my thinking this year has been Joshua 1:9 that says, be strong and courageous, don't be frightened. And do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And I'm excited. I'm excited about wherever we're going. But I'm more excited about the impact that this is going to make on other people's lives.
It's fantastic. Sam, thank you. It's been a real treat. Just an encouragement on so many levels and so many nuggets to take with us today from what you've shared with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, so grateful, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, David.
To learn more about 1110 Leadership, visit our website at 1110leadership.com. That's the numerals 11, then spelled out TEN leadership.com. That's 11tenleadership.com. There you'll find more resources to equip you on the journey of becoming an 1110 leader. You can also get connected to our growing leadership network. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. To help others find us, you can also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.